Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to see how to connect our iFIX application to a Microsoft SQL Server database, whether it's on the same host or on a remote server. Following that, we will test different commands, such as an insert, an update, etc., to verify that the connection works. Although there are multiple ways to achieve this goal, today we will focus on doing it through programming using the Visual Basic Editor. Let's begin. Before starting with the programming, we need to verify that the SQL library is installed in our Visual Basic project. This library is called Microsoft ActiveX Data Objects Library, or also known by its acronym, ADOB. To see which libraries are installed in our project, we need to open the Visual Basic Editor. We do this by clicking on the third icon in the top menu of the workspace. Once we've opened it, we need to open the References menu, which is where all the installed libraries appear. Additionally, from this menu, we can also install new libraries or remove selected ones. To open this menu, in the top menu bar, we will click on Tools and select the References option from the drop-down menu that appears. In this menu, the libraries currently activated in our project appear with a check mark on the left side. By default, a series of libraries available for installation also appear, which, as you can see, are numerous. We are looking for the library called Microsoft ActiveX Data Objects Library. If we press the M key to search for this library, we arrive at a point where we find it with its different versions, ranging from 2.0 to 6.1. As a quick summary, versions ranging from 2.0 to 2.7 are very old versions from the Windows 95 era. They are obsolete today, and it is not recommended to use them unless the application is very, very old. Version 2.8 is from the Windows XP era and is extremely stable and compatible. Many of the projects I have seen still use this version today. Version 6.1 is the most modern and comes integrated with the latest Windows versions, such as Windows 10 and 11. In terms of functionality, it is exactly the same as version 2.8. but with the difference that it is more optimized for current operating systems. For our purposes, we are going to select version 6.1. If, for whatever reason, these libraries do not appear by default, the path and name that we should add appear in the lower section, under Location. Once we have seen the path, as shown here in our case, we must click Browse and select it. If your PC does not have the library in that location, it can be downloaded from the internet. Finally, it is important to emphasize that we should never select more than one version at a time, as this is quite likely to cause compilation errors in our Visual Basic project. Once we have added the library, if we want to know what the libraries contain, we can consult the Object Browser. We can open it in three ways: by pressing F2, by clicking the icon in the top menu, or by selecting Object Browser from the View menu. From here, we can select the library we just installed, which is called ADOB. The left panel shows the classes, which are all available objects, for example, buttons, database connections, iFIX tags, etc. The right panel shows the members, which indicate what can be done with the object selected on the left. The bottom panel shows a brief description of the function and what parameters it requires. For context, we have SQL Server running on the same machine as our iFIX application. Here, we have created a database called test_database and a table called table_1 with the following columns. We have also created a stored procedure. We will look at it later. We also have another remote server with SQL Server installed. Here, we have also created a database called remote_db and a table called table_2 with the same columns as in the previous example. Now that we have added the library and the main concepts are clear, let's start with the programming. Returning to the Visual Basic Editor, I have created a new global module called Global_SQL. We will develop all the SQL Server query examples from here. Specifically, we will see how to perform an insert, an update, a select, a delete. and how to execute a stored procedure remotely. To begin, let's look at the two most important elements for the connection string and the ADO objects. We have defined two connection constants, which we call connection strings. These are essentially the credentials and the address of our database. One of them has been created to define the connection to the local SQL server, and the other has been created to define the connection to the SQL server on the remote computer. The format of this connection string consists of several parts, separated by semicolons. The first parameter is the provider. This specifies the provider we will use, in this case, the SQL Server OLE DB provider. Next, we have the data source, which is the host name or IP of the machine where SQL Server is running. For the local connection, this will be the local PC's name, and for the remote server, it will be that PC's name. Following that, we have the initial catalog, which is the name of the specific database we want to connect to. Finally, we have the user ID and the password, which are the access credentials. In this example, we have a SQL user called SA on both servers, and both have the same password. We also have the SQL timeout constant, which defines how many seconds iFIX will wait before aborting the connection attempt if it doesn't receive a response. 30 seconds is a common value, but it can be adjusted. Finally, we have defined myAdoSQL as an ADODB.connection object, which will be responsible for managing communication with the SQL server. With these concepts clear, let's move on to the first function, where we will perform an insert on the local servers table. First, we create VBA variables with data types that correspond to the data types of the SQL columns. It is very important that the data types we are going to send match those in SQL, as otherwise, the insert is very likely to result in an error. This also applies to the rest of the queries, such as update, select, etc. After creating the temporary variables, we assign them a value. If we wanted to use a value from an iFIX tag, we would uncomment a line like the example 1 to read the tag's current value and thus transfer that value to the table. Next, we proceed to establish the connection with the SQL server. First, we use the myAdoSQL variable to instantiate the connection object. Then we assign it the local connection string we defined above, which targets the local SQL server. And then we open the connection to the database. Once the connection part is done, we move on to constructing the query. We built this statement by concatenating the visual basic variables. It is essential that string and date type values are enclosed in single quotes within the SQL statement. Note that for the date, we apply a format that SQL Server can interpret correctly. Next, we construct the query, where we use the insert instruction, pointing to our table. At the top, we have the column names, and at the bottom, the values we will insert into each of them. Finally, we move to the execution and closing part. With the execute instruction, we execute the SQL command on the server. After this, we close the connection and release the object from memory. This is important to free up resources. After this explanation, if we try to execute the code by clicking the Run button, we can see that the values have indeed been inserted into the table. With the update local function, we will look at the functionality for making modifications to existing rows. In this case, we will update all rows where column 1 has the value 5, changing the value of column 4 to by. To start, we define two variables. One will be used to construct the where clause, and the other variable will be used to store the text we want to update. Next, we establish the connection to the database. This part is exactly the same as in the previous insert case. Then, we construct the query where we use the update instruction pointing to our table, and we ensure the rows are updated as we previously defined. Finally, as in the previous example, we execute the query and close the connection. If we try to execute this function, we can verify that it has indeed updated the row we inserted before, changing the text from hello to bye. With the select local function, we will look at the functionality for querying data from a row in our table to store it in variables in our code. This could also be used to transfer those values to tags in our PDB. This is quite useful in recipe management, for example. In this case, we will select the data from the columns we just modified, choosing the row where column 1 has the value 5. To start, we create the variables we will use to store the query values. We also create the variable we will use as the condition in the where clause. In addition to the myAutoSQL connection, we define an ADODB.RecordSet object called RS. A record set is like a temporary table containing the results returned by the SQL query. It is necessary for executing the select command. The rest of the code for querying the database remains the same as in the previous examples. Then we move on to constructing the query. The select statement requests values from specific columns in our table, where the condition we defined previously is met. Next, we proceed with the execution of the select statement. To do this, we first instantiate the container, and then execute the query. The parameters for this instruction are the query, followed by the active connection. Then with the number 3, we enable the functionality to move freely through the records. And finally, with the number 1, we indicate that we only want to read, not modify data. Once the query has been performed, the read values are transferred to our variables. To avoid errors, we first check to make sure values have been read. If values are found, they are accessed by the column name and stored in our Visual Basic variables. As a side note, the commented example lines with right value demonstrate how we could directly send the value read from SQL to an iFIX PDB tag. It is important to use CSTR to ensure the value is passed as a string. Finally, we display the values in a message box and close the connection. If we try to execute the function, we can confirm that we have successfully queried and displayed the row from our table. With the delete local function, we will see how to delete rows in our table. In this case, we will delete the rows where column 1 has the value 5. The structure of this function is quite similar to the ones we have already seen. First, we define the variable we will use in the where clause of our query. Then we will create the connection to our local database. Next, we will construct our query using the delete instruction and pointing to our table. As a general SQL tip, whenever you want to execute a delete, do not forget to include a where condition. Otherwise, you will completely erase all data from your table. If we now try to execute the function, we can verify that the row we had has been effectively deleted. Finally, let's see how to execute a stored procedure remotely. On our SQL Server, we have created a very simple stored procedure. Its function is to insert a row with predefined values into our table. The only peculiarity is that the value for column 1 will be passed as a parameter directly from our code. The logic of the code is as follows. First, we define the parameter we want to pass to the procedure and assign it the value 10. Then, we open the connection in the same way as in the previous examples. Next, we proceed to construct the query. The exec command is used, followed by the stored procedure name and the parameter values. Then, the procedure is executed with the execute instruction. Finally, the connection to the database is closed. If we now try to execute the function, we can verify that the stored procedure has indeed been executed, inserting the values we defined into a row of our table. All that remains is to see how the procedure would be for querying a remote database. This is easier than it seems, as the only thing that changes is our connection string, which will now point to the remote database. To test this functionality, a function called selectRemote has been created, which will execute a select query on the remote servers table. A couple of things to keep in mind are that we must have the SQL TCP/IP protocol enabled on both machines. We can do this by accessing the SQL Server Configuration Manager. Depending on the installation, it may also be necessary to modify the Windows hosts file to route to the remote server directly by name. Below is the folder where this file is located and an example of IP to name routing. Having clarified this point, If we go to the remote server, we can see that we have one row in the table. If we now try to query this row from our code, we can confirm that it works correctly. Finally, let's look at how to visually represent table data on our application screens. For this example, we will leverage the work we did in the alarms video, where we configured all events and alarms to be saved in a table on our SQL Server. Our goal now is to display this data in a tabular and interactive format within one of our picture screens. I won't go into too much detail about the process, as it depends heavily on the type of object being inserted. In this case, a Microsoft FlexGrid ActiveX control has been used. We can insert this class of objects in two ways: from the Workspace's top menu in the Insert section and in the Objects and Links dropdown by selecting the OLE object type. We can also do it through the toolbox by clicking on the OLE Objects icon. When selecting this option, the Insert Object pop-up will open. From here, on the left side, we need to have the Create Control option selected. All available controls appear in the center section. And at the bottom, in the Results section, a brief description of the object's functionality is displayed. In our case, the object we inserted is called Microsoft FlexGrid Control. To populate this object with our table data, the following code has been used, which executes when the screen is opened. In summary, this code performs a select query on our SQL Server's alarms and events table. The values are then transferred using the object's own properties. If we now try to put this screen in run mode or runtime mode, we can verify that it works correctly and meets our objective of representing the alarms and events table on our picture. And with that, we've come to the end. I hope you found it useful. Leaving a like and subscribing is the best way to support the channel, and it truly means a lot. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next one.